go rapid fire here. Kind of, we were just
Okay.
discussing internally the degree of difficulty, because sometimes it's not always about just performance. The degree of difficulty you think for Coach Rhule and Coach Raiola to part ways.
Well, I mean, I think there was probably some for sure. I think Raiola did a pretty good job over the time that he was here. I think some of his work was overshadowed by the fact that his nephew was the quarterback, and so that was probably a little bit of some of it. Although, like, I don't think that those things are connected, but I think that his time here was probably a little overshadowed by that. I think the degree of difficulty goes down when I think you're making the hire that you're making. I think within the analytics community, I think they'd say Geep Wade is a pretty big upgrade. So the numbers look really good. It's very similar to the Eckler hire. Where what you do is you look at it and you start looking at all the data and you're like, okay, they ran the ball. Okay, they only gave up 18 sacks over the last 2 seasons, and they threw the ball more times per game this year than Nebraska did.
And he can recruit his tail off too.
Right. So, like, you start looking at the numbers and you're like, okay, this is an Eckler-esque hire. Like, this guy actually getting it done at a number of places. It wasn't just Georgia Tech, but he was getting it done at a number of places, and it all kind of fell into place a little bit. So I'm guessing that some of it is, okay, well, who are you getting? Who are you letting go, and who are you getting? And Penn State's asking itself that question, this week. Okay, we got rid of James Franklin, but we got Matt Campbell. What did we lose? What did we gain? For what it's worth, I think it's about a wash. I think they got about as good of a coach as they lost. Maybe not as good of a recruiter. We'll see. But I think Nebraska can step back from the offensive line conversation and say, well, the guy we went out and got, we had to go get, and they had to pony up too. So I had heard they had, $1.5 million for the right offensive line coach pretty quickly. And so, I think that's probably what he got over the course of 2 years. And that's a lot of money for an online coach. So they must really like him. And so I think the degree of difficulty is there's two parts to it. There's the letting go, and there's the we let him go, and we hired another guy within 3 hours. So they felt really good about who they were going to get.
Yeah. So, Sam, the timing of this obviously was super interesting. And a part of you has to have, like, they had to have a pretty good idea that they had a yes from somebody they liked, considering the timing,
Absolutely.
right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that Aaron Cooling is a solid person to lead that line for the short time being, because I'm guessing Geep Wade's not going to coach the group this week. And the young guys, as they prepare for Utah or don't prepare for Utah, they just sort of
Yeah, I'll be curious to see who plays.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, I do too. I'm not going to. It's notable if people opt out, not if people decide to play with this group. Now, maybe somewhere else it would be more. It would be more notable if they played. But Nebraska, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, has got one guy that's got a draftable grade, and that's Emmett. I don't know that anyone else is getting drafted. That doesn't mean I don't think they should, but I think it's going to be real tight. And so I'm guessing they'll all play. Turner Corcoran is a very tough person, and he may just decide, you know what, I don't need to go through another month of that. I'm going to retire or whatever. So I could see that, but I think a lot of them are going to play. I think they need to. I think putting it on tape against Utah, and these people do watch bowls a lot. Bowl play matters to NFL scouts. Putting it on tape against Utah would be a feather in anybody's cap.
Sam, as you obviously we talked about Geep Wade and the hire there. I think that's a no-brainer, clear upgrade for everybody that's looked at it. And honestly, I thought that was one of the only scenarios in which Donovan actually was let go, despite what a lot of the public narrative was about him, was if they did have a yes before they even really moved on from him. The defensive coordinator spot took a little bit longer to fill. Obviously, they end up with Rob Aurich from San Diego State. Do you have initial thoughts on the hire?
Yeah, I think he did a really good job. So I had actually watched a couple of San Diego State teams this season. I think the Mountain West is league, and so I enjoy watching some of those games late at night. I had watched them play California. They beat California 34-0. Now, California was not a perfect team by any means, but California's got a good quarterback, and they just put 38 on SMU, and so they're no joke. I mean, California can move the football, and San Diego State shut them out.
Especially if you're comparing defensive coordinator prowesses, and I get it, it's not that linear, but I mean, we like SMU's DC.
Right. And so I think there's some really good stuff to watch. They do a lot of the things that Rhule wants schematically. In other words, you can go and watch that entire game on YouTube, and you don't even have to watch the game. Somebody cut up every Cal offensive play against San Diego State's defense, and it's about 20 minutes. And it's good. Like, it gives you a sense of how their pressures work, and they bring a lot of middle pressures. They drop people out. They had great edge rushers, not good ones, but great ones, who were really active and really physical and a little bit undersized, so they weren't like giants or anything. But I think this hire is going to be more about, we're going to listen to this guy talk, and we're going to see how he functions within the group. And I think we will understand that what Rhule likes about him is he's a Rhule guy. Just his personality and sort of the lunch pail thing, and he's been in the Midwest, and he's developed players, which you must do when you coach at Bemidji State and South Dakota and Idaho, and he worked for Jason Eck, and that's not a small thing. That guy's going to be a power conference coach.
Eck's the real deal.
Right. So, you worked for him for 2 years, and I think that probably matters. The Geep Wade hire seems like there's got multiple guys on Rhule's staff that are like, yeah, I work with that guy. He's great. That's the guy you want. And so, that one seemed really, really straightforward. I think this one, Rhule talked to about 5 to 7 people. People reached out to him who have resumes might impress you. And I think he picked this guy because he's like, yeah, this guy's a young guy. He's sort of an up-and-comer, fast riser, and he's our kind of guy. He walks around in a sweatshirt. He's tough. He's kind of a big guy. He's a lunch pail guy. He's a developer. He's not, head in the clouds or whatever you want to call it.
It fits his social temperament better too, because not that there's anything wrong with being a philosopher, but I think sometimes, having conversations with Coach Butler and Coach Rhule, Coach Rhule's kind of a more get to the point kind of guy, like show me.
Oh yeah.
And that wasn't always Butler's style. You know what I mean? I don't think he has to worry about that with Rob.
No question. I don't know that much about Aurich. I read, I watched a lot last night. I read the comments he made to the San Diego Union Tribune, which are very complimentary of Nebraska. And I think he wanted to take his shot here. But that's my sense of that hire. I think they probably could have gotten a guy who you're like, oh, he coordinated at school X for 6 years, and he was pretty good most of the time, and he can recruit. They wanted a guy that I think, A, was younger, B, was just hungry, and C, had that sort of edge, to him, kind of a ball coach kind of edge. There's qualities about Marcus Satterfield that are really, really positive. I don't know that he was a great coordinator at Nebraska, but there's qualities about him that I think resonate a lot with Rhule. He's a ball coach. He's no nonsense. He loves football. I think Aurich probably has a lot of those, and I think he's gonna do some of the things that Rhule looks for, and that Eck had done, and that. So I think that's going to be the general sense of the hire. I'd be surprised if he was a $1.5 million guy, but he did get it. I think he got a 3-year contract. I've heard that, and I've read that. So we'll see how much they paid for him. He was probably getting other job offers, but I suspect that Nebraska was the best job offer.
Okay, so Sam, let me ask you this here, because we've kind of laid out a lot of qualities that we think factored into this hire. How much do you think Aurich's reputation at a couple different spots for very quick turnarounds factored into this hiring decision, as opposed to some other guys that maybe had longer track records.
Especially as much as I think Coach Rhule's phone rang.
Yeah, it rang a lot.
Yeah.
So I think, but see, there's a lot of different ways you can go about how you hire that position. And I'm not trying to be rude by saying this about defensive coordinators. I think your offensive coordinator hire is super important in any program, because how you decide you're going to play offense dictates a lot. It dictates at least some of what you're going to do defensively. And like, they got a guy in Dana Holgorsen who was actually willing to dial back some of his Dana-isms in order to protect that defense. You want to get to the point where that's not the case, where what Nebraska is able to do is they're able to kind of let it go a little bit, and they're able to play with a little bit of pace and trust that the defense is going to go get a takeaway every so often and like go make a play. And I don't feel like they felt like they could do that. Like they were a little hamstrung by the lack of big play or havoc plays that was made by the defense. So I think Aurich's turnaround ability is good. His experience coaching pass rushers, I think, will help. And again, I think what you're going to see from him, and I suppose Andrew Marshall knows him. Marshall would. I think Andrew Marshall was at Idaho in 2023. I think he was. I think what you're going to see is that he will come in and say, listen, this is the best Clay that I've had to work with, versus Butler, who's like, well, you're not Von Miller. And so this will be the best Clay that he's worked with. And he will be like, yeah, I can fix this, and this. I'm a developer. I can fix this. I can find answers for guys that are not complete players yet. Whereas Butler was coming from the opposite direction. He was coaching guys that were 9 and 10 and 12-year veterans who had pretty much arrived at who they were going to be, and it was their job to sort of conform to what the NFL coordinators wanted. This is different. You have to conform to the talents of your players, and I think Aurich feels that. Obviously, people talked about the Toledo guy. Interesting hire if that had been made. Different personality, right? And so like kind of a larger one, and probably has his own very clear ideas about what he wants to do. I think he'll be
I think Coach Rhule being forthright about, kind of being one of a few candidates, well, that's not always appealing to some. You know what I mean? Like, some guys want to know if they're going to be the guy right now or not.
There's no question. And it was represented that he was like going to take the job. And I always thought there was going to be at least 5 or 6 guys, and understand there were people that reached out who probably didn't get an interview.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's just an understanding of how good, I think, Rhule's reputation for who you can work for. You're going to learn something from him, even if it doesn't go perfect. 2, the Big Ten, like it's a good league, and you're getting good play, and you're going to get money to go out and get a player or two. And again, I don't want to knock. We haven't spoken since Butler was fired. I don't want to get into a big long thing about John Butler, who I think in some ways did a pretty darn good job. And I think within 2 or 3 weeks, I'm going to write about how, in part, what Butler was really good at would have worked really well if this offense had been better. But it just wasn't. Or the defense, or it got to the point where they're like, well, you know what, we the offense has got to slow everything down.
Or maybe if they had I'm sorry, Sam. My bad.
No, go ahead.
Is it are you
go.
saying if they had a longer runway, he could have worked out?
I understand what you mean by that, but I actually am saying they paid a lot of money for that offense. A lot of money. It should have been better than it was.
Yeah.
I think they know that, and like by the end of the season, it gained an identity. It did. Like, they knew who they were, and they were going to be built on running Emmett. But they scored 10 and 16 in the last 2 games. And granted, those were against better defenses than UCLA, but they didn't. They weren't scoring 30. They weren't scoring The last time I felt like we saw that offense was at Maryland. And it felt freewheeling, and it felt like Dana was in his element and Dylan was in his, and I'm like, this is the best Dylan's played.
Mhm.
And he's making mistakes and he's throwing picks, but he's coming back, and this is who Dylan can be. And then they go to Minnesota, and whatever they were trying to, I think that game was the turning point of the season. They didn't expect it to go that way.
It 100% was, and I think it changed Coach Rhule's temperament too.
Yeah.
I think that game.
I think
it changed his temperament. Like, okay, I'm over it. Like, gloves were off. He tried. He was. Yeah, I agree. He's that game was the turning point.
It was a turning point, and the other thing is too. Again, it paid money, good money for a lot of these guys on the offensive side of the ball. One of them didn't start till the 5th game. I think that was because Rhule pushed it, and rightly so. I think Matt Rhule's a larger believer in his players sometimes than some of his assistants, and I think Rhule's got a little bit of that in him from, he just the best players got to play, and we're going to get this guy on the field and we're going to work it out. So that was Pritchett. And then on the flip side of the coin, I don't think they got enough out of their highest priced receiver until midway through the season too. And so it took a long time for the 2 of the 3 highest paid players, well, I think they are, on the offensive side of the ball to click together in the same game at the same time, that being Pritchett and Keith. And anyway, we'll get to that eventually, because I don't want to, John Butler had weaknesses and clearly wasn't a fit for Rhule, and the last 2 games were a disaster, and a lot of that was on Butler. But they've got to figure out a way to play better offense, and that dovetails into Dylan's decision. What's Dylan going to do? Is he going to come back? I don't think that the uncle being let go has much to do with Dylan's decision at all. Our columnist Tom Chattel wrote the same thing. I think Tom's right. I think Dylan's got to make a decision related to if he's going to be here at Nebraska, he has to be the man. But
it was interesting how he kind of threw the gauntlet. He challenged him to answer the dinner bell versus coaxing him into doing anything. You know what I mean? I thought that spoke volumes to me, knowing Coach Rhule's personality.
It did. It was a big moment. And we haven't heard anything from Dylan since. And here's the thing, though. There is nowhere else in the country that Dylan can go where they're not going to say the exact same thing to him. Because unless he were to go to Group of 5, which I don't know how that helps him get to the NFL. Maybe it does. Rarely does that help. I guess it did with Joe Flacco back in the day. But the point being that if he were to go to Miami, you think Miami's going to tell him anything different? No. Miami's going to be like, we're in the playoffs, and you ain't doing us a favor. We're doing you a favor. You're going to make less money than you made at Nebraska. You're going to do this, this, and this. We are going to run the football. We're going to run it 35 times a game because our head coach is an offensive line guy, and you're going to play in a pro style, and you're going to do this, this, and this. And if they want him to lose 37 pounds, he doesn't need to. But if they said that, he'd have to do it. Everything that a school like on Miami would ask of him is what Nebraska's saying now. So it's not like he's going to go find somewhere that says, well, Nebraska mistreated you or they were asking too much. No. If he wants to go to the places that can win at a high level, they're going to ask the exact same thing of him. So he can either do it here with all the people he already knows and with what I suspect would be more money than he would get at another school, or he can try going to another school and saying basically, it's too familiar here. There were too many kid gloves on me, at one time, and now I got to go somewhere where nobody knows me, and they're going to treat me like, I'm a new enlistee in the military. They don't know me from anybody, and that maybe that's the way the family goes.
Well,
I think that's what Rhule was trying to do.
I do think, to that point, I think that's Dom's wishes too. I know Dom, I think he wants him coached hard too. So wherever that's going to be, I think that's part of the development of the next chapter for Dylan, whether he stays or goes.
Yes.
It's the demanding portion of it where you have to build emotional and physical rigor to give yourself a chance at a productive future.
Right. So I don't name who the person is, but there was a 5-star athlete at Nebraska, I don't know, 10 years ago. And they were really good. But they weren't doing all the things that I think their coaches were asking them to do. And so they left and they went to a program that won all the time, like all the time. And the coach was like, do this, this, and this. And that person did that, and that, and they were an All-American. And so sometimes it helps when you're so familiar with the situation to go somewhere else where like you're just one of many 5-stars. And everybody's like, like if he were to go to Oregon, and I don't think he's going to, I don't know if Dante Moore's coming back or whatever, but if he were, Oregon would be like, well, this is what he did, and this is what they did. And we have mobile quarterbacks, so if you want to play here, you're going to have to learn how to run. Like, it's not going to be negotiable. Dan Lanning's not going to be like, well, whatever you want to do. Like, it's going to be, that's the way it's going to be. And, you're not going to stand out. You're just going to be one of the rest of the guys, and this is the culture. And we'll see.
I think one of the things that I'm interested to see, whether it's the coaching staff or players or whatever, I think, because Coach Rhule is obviously not above responsibility. I think one of the things that he's learning is the balance of, how do I say it? Like, it's not like he's anointing guys, but I think he has to go back a little bit more to, you have to direct the guys, or you need to hire guys that are capable of holding people accountable all the time. Right? I think he thought he was maybe past that, but I don't know if he really is with where this team was emotionally. Like, sometimes I just got the sense, and this is just my opinion, I got the sense like you still had to direct them too much on the day-to-day ins and outs of doing hard things, right? Where I go back to the Minnesota game when he was pissed about having to get coaches to dial in too. Like, I don't think he's going to put himself in a position where that has to happen to him again. And people will say, oh, you're at this stage of your career, coach, but you don't know what's going to happen until those guys go through that situation, right? We can say that, well, Coach Rhule should have known, or, he should have, but you don't know until you see the guys that you work with and for and the players actually go through that situation before you have a benchmark of how they handle it. You know what I mean? So, yeah, you can go back and say
that's a great point.
You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
You can be mad at him for not knowing, and I'm not excusing him of culpability. What I'm saying is he doesn't know until he sees it play out too, which is why I think Minnesota pissed him off so much, is because he either said one of two things: I got to be better, and I'm going to be, or damn it, I'm mad at myself. I should have seen this coming. Like, one of the, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So,
for sure.
Like,
I think
that's
really
part of the I think that's just part of. I just think that's part of the maturation process of being here.
I think it is. I think you're spot on. I mean, I do think there are a handful of programs at the very top that are at Kirby Smart at Georgia, who's able to, and Georgia's program isn't perfect. Look at, some of their players get in trouble driving on the road, but they do a really nice job, I think, of getting everybody to understand what the expectations are, and kind of getting the same effort every week. I mean, Georgia was not great early in the season on defense, and then they got better and things like that. But there aren't that many programs that are able to kind of repeatedly get that year after year after year. And I think part of that's because it's the guys that you recruit and the people you're around. And I'm sure there's people at Ohio State today, and this is obviously ridiculous since Brian Day's won a lot of football games, but I think that, like, one of the statements that I hear from Ohio State media and fans is, it's like, God dang it, this team's got more talent than whatever, and they find a way to screw up close games that they shouldn't lose all the time. And it's like once a year. But but their fans feel like their coaching staff doesn't fully hold the players accountable. So like it's sort of a sport-wide thing, and there's just rare that there's a coach that can get it. I think Brent Venables would say somehow it eluded him last year, but he got it this year. And you look at their team, and if I was going to pick a program, I don't really like Oklahoma from my history, my life. But if you look at that Oklahoma team this year, you're like, Nebraska could be that team next year. They could. They'd have to get better on defense, and they'd have to get tougher. But there's a lot of things about Oklahoma that are like you see that, and you're like, yeah.
You're talking about the depth defensively along that D line?
Yeah, their depth. I think they'd have to get better there. I think Mateer added something to that program that Jackson Arnold didn't. Jackson Arnold's transferring again. So John Mateer added that. That's what Dylan's got to add. So wherever, and I'm not saying TJ Lateef couldn't add it. I actually think TJ's got a lot of those qualities. I'm just saying that if Dylan's got that if he's got that instinct and he's got that inside him, now's the time to bring it out. It's like, now you're a veteran. You've been through some wars. You've been hurt twice in your career. You've had to experience some things. Do you want to take those experiences to a different place, or do you want to bring them at Nebraska? And yeah, so like Oklahoma's a team I look at and go, Nebraska could be that. Nebraska's going to play a team in the bowl game that Nebraska can beat. They can beat Utah. They can. And Utah does things the right way, in my opinion, in a lot of ways. And so there's templates out there. I don't think the template's Ohio State. I don't. And it doesn't have to be. And I'm not even sure the template's Indiana. I think the template is more the teams that have a long established traditional culture of football, like Oklahoma, now a little bit more like Utah, where you're not just drawing upon, Kurt Signetti's drawing upon himself. You can't. It's harder to do that at Nebraska and Oklahoma because people all remember.
Yeah, there's a historical benchmark.
I think in conference,
right.
Michigan is the one that makes,
that's the difference.
Like Michigan is kind of, I think, the one that I think about.
Right. Michigan's got the same question marks now, and I kind of like their head coach, but he's what do you mean? He's on the hot seat. They can't miss the playoff again. Like, that's not going to work. And so he's going to have to go out and make a bunch of hires. And, their big benefactor from Barstool said, I'm not giving Bryce Underwood any more money. So there's all these other things. Like, it's fun to watch it. I think Nebraska's got a real challenge, though. And they've got, again, people will be, it's not about, I think they got to know if Dylan's in.
I think they do. I think they do know. I just can't see one guy, like, they're just, and maybe this is just me thinking too highly of Coach Rhule. He's just, if he didn't let some of these other guys that came through the portal hold him hostage, I just can't see Dylan holding him hostage either. And I don't know if that's what the family wants. It may not be public yet, but I'm sure they're well aware of what the outcome is going to be. Just seems that way. And I'm not saying – I know what you're thinking, Sam. You're going to think, well, Damon, no. I don't. I'm just telling you, I'm basing it on the O-line hire, the DC hire, the comments from Minnesota. Like, he's not messing around. He's got to get better. No. He's pissed. He's going to hold him. Like, he's not doing this. He knows what this team needs, and it's emotional toughness. The talent will come. Just do hard things and see where that gets him. That's what he's going to do. I almost guarantee it. You can tell by how he talks. You know what I mean? It's like he's not giving himself any leeway. He's like, I'm going to get my ass in gear too. You know what I mean? Like, he just seems – he worked quick. He got rid of Butler quick. He had talked to this dude was having the reports were this Sunday and this weekend when guys were in town. That was all backwards. That was a week previous. Like, he was already on the move. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's not jacking around.
No, he's not. I think there's, again, it's possible that they already know the answer to the Dylan question. I think it would be helpful if it came this week, or even, I do. I just, again, let's say he stays. I think there's a scenario in which that could be a really, really good result for Nebraska.
Yeah, I don't have an
say-
opinion
let's
either
say he
way. I
goes.
just don't. They're just not going to allow it to drag out. Just either be in or
Right.
be out.
Right. And I can see a scenario in which where he leaves, and okay, all we're going to all rally around TJ, but then there needs to be like okay, if this is our guy, then this is our guy, and how do we, assuming that TJ is a little bit different, and he is in I think ways that are good in some ways, but nevertheless, how do we not get him hurt, and how do we build an offense that takes advantage of everything, that runs the right way, and also gets the thing that Dylan gave you, which is, we have to be honest, Dylan Raiola won them, the Maryland and the Northwestern games.
Yeah.
Now, he almost lost them the games, but he won the games. And so, like, you can't take that away from him. It just, I don't know. I guess we'll find out. In a perfect world, Dylan would come back and say, you don't have to ask me to do anything. I'm going to do everything that needs to be done. I know that it's my team.
Yep.
I know what I lost when I got hurt. And TJ can do whatever he wants. I'll compete against him. I'll compete against everybody. I don't care. I'm going to take it because I'm Matt. And Greg McDermott we didn't talk any basketball, but Greg McDermott made the comment yesterday about Sam Hoiberg. And he said, Sam doesn't care.
He's
he
fat.
Scores.
Mac told us more about what it takes to win in a loss than in a loss. Mac's pretty smart, man. Like,
he is.
It doesn't matter what the sport is. Successful teams have similar ingredients, and that's knowing your role and doing things the right way over an extended period of time. Like, it's not real rocket science. It's just hard to find guys that are pot committed. You know what I mean?
Right. And certainly Sam Hoiberg does not enjoy the physical talent that Dylan does relative to his sport.
Mm-hmm.
Sam's not 6'7" like his dad or whatever Fred is. But there's a quality there that I think, even if Dylan goes to the NFL, Josh Allen's probably the most physically gifted, maybe Lamar Jackson. And if you look at the way they played yesterday, and the dejection that Jackson had, and the emotion that Allen showed for winning that game,
dude, it was 3rd and 15, and
everything
he
you need to
scrambled to seal the victory. Josh Allen yesterday. Like, who's doing that?
Yeah, I mean, they're fearless. They're fearless players, and like the stats come, but they don't really care about anything except winning. And so there's the thing. That's the thing that that Dylan's got to. And when you care that much, it's not that Dylan doesn't care. Doesn't care. It's more that like you have to be able to take your teammates and do whatever needs to be done. Not in the fourth quarter, but in at 4:00 on a Tuesday afternoon, like all those things.
Yeah.
You just got to be able to. So is he going to be able to do that? And if he's able to do it, I think he's still the best quarterback for Nebraska next year. But I think that's a decision, like you said. I think that would best come this week. That's my opinion. Best decision would be this week.
Sam, were you talking about Aaron Green? Who was the 5-star?
No, it wasn't a football player. Because Aaron Green wasn't an All-American, but he did come. He did go to TCU and get things done. I think he would have been pretty good here too. But no. The person I'm thinking of, they were a star here. They were great. They were fine. But again, sometimes you just you go to a program, and all of a sudden maybe it all of a sudden you get even better. That's the thing that I think. And I'm not trying to. That person's had an incredible amount of success. I think, that just that's an example of like what's going to happen for Dylan if he goes to Miami. It's not going to be, that'll be the last time you see Dylan do the Mahomes stuff. It needs to be the last time anyway.
He already cut his hair.
It needs to be the last time anyway. But like that'll be the last time.
All right.
Like if he went to Miami, well, Miami's not doing it. So like, You know, you don't go to the U and do that. So like,
or the league.
that's my point. Right. Like, that's my point, is that like all of it now has to be dialed way back, and it has to be all about the focus and again, the good quarterback, kind of like Mateer. The good quarterbacks are unbelievably tough, and there's that moment in a game where they're a little mean. Fernando Mendoza is apparently a saint, and good for him.
I'm off the Mendoza train after that post-game interview.
After I
can't
heard his
believe
voice.
I'm so
But
shallow.
I'll
I
take
am
Diego
so
Pavia
shallow.
every day of the week.
Yeah, Pavia's
I'll take Diego Pavia every day of the week. That's who I'll take. Like, if I got to go into an alley, I'm going to take Pavia.
Well,
That's who I'm taking.
Pavia's going to take Pavia too.
That guy. Yeah, like, now he's got a Kirk Cousins quality, and that's fine. And Kirk Cousins is a good player.
You like that?
I'm just saying that, and Cousins can get frustrated. I'm sure Mendoza does too. I'm sure he does. But sooner or later, the good quarterbacks are, they're a little bit like a Josh Allen or a Baker Mayfield or, Tom Brady, who was kind of a jerk. That's just where Troy Aikman was a jerk a little bit, but that's kind of how it gets, because you have to be the extension of the staff, and that's where Dylan needs to get. Dylan needs to be an extension of Matt Rhule, and any quarterback does. And we'll see if that happens.
That is Sam McKewon from the Omaha World Herald. Sam, appreciate the time as always. We will talk to you next week.
Sam, I figured out who you were talking about. Can you just say yes to being a hooper?
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, I got it.